The eCom Q4 Summit was created to prove that any seller can experience a highly profitable fourth quarter with access to the right tips, strategies, and techniques. There's no need to struggle trying to figure out what to sell, where to find it, or how much to list it for. The summit covers everything from sourcing to listing to marketing and streamlining your operations. It doesn't matter if you're selling on one platform or multiple platforms like Amazon, eBay, Shopify, Walmart. And it doesn't matter if you're a new seller or an experienced seller. The information in the summit will help you get sale after sale after sale after sale during the busiest shopping season of the year, if you take massive action. So welcome to the eCom Q4 Summit. Hello, this is Nicole Whitlock with the eCom Q4 Summit, and today's key feature speaker is Jeff Schick. Now, Jeff Schick is the creator and founder of Seller Basics. He's an amazing attorney. He's actually been a speaker in both the eCom Seller Summit and the eCom Q4 Summit, and we're very glad that he's here. So thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, Nicole.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, today's format is going to be a little bit different than before. So what we're going to do is we're going to transport ourselves to Jeff's law school. We're going to talk about law that Amazon sellers need to know. So we'll start off with a little bit of retail arbitrage. Then we'll go to online arbitrage, private label, white label, and then just talk about briefly about other platforms. So it's going to be me and Nicole just having a chat and a discussion and just, covering the basics of what sellers need to know.
That's right, because we're both sellers.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, Jeff is an attorney and a seller. So I love that.
Yes.
All right. So Jeff, the floor is yours.
All right. So what we're going to talk about first is the dreaded, cease and desist letters that retail arbitrage sellers are all too common with. So the number one thing I usually see from sellers is on a weekly basis, someone reaches out to us, they say, I received this cease and desist letter. Can I throw it in the trash? And the answer to that question is, unsurprisingly, no, you cannot throw it in the trash. But the important thing is to know what you're dealing with. So, what does that, my actual, foray into the Voorhees universe started when I received one of their letters when I was in law school. So here I was in law school receiving a cease and desist letter from this, big law firm out of Ohio, thinking that I was actually doing something wrong. And so that prompted me to really start investigating and learning more about the space. And so the key takeaways, though, is that you need to read the letter carefully. Not every letter is the same. So some letters have different little nuggets in it that make them more threatening than others. So for instance, one of our sellers last year received a letter that said, the first line was, we did a test buy of your product and found that it was counterfeit. Well, as an attorney, we're bound by ethical rules. And one of those ethics is that we have a duty of fair dealing and a duty of truthfulness. It's called a duty of candor. And so what that means is that if we know something to be false, like telling someone they're selling counterfeit products when we know they're real, that would be unethical to send that sort of letter. And for as much as people dislike Voorhees tactics, they follow the ethical rules. So if Voorhees tells you that they bought your product and it's counterfeit, you need to talk to an attorney right away, because that means it probably is counterfeit. And so what we discovered in this case was that the seller had received a pallet of product. They'd gotten it for 50% under what they normally purchased it for the store from, because they've had a friend of a friend in Miami who had this pallet. And of course, as any good, Miami, South Florida friend of a friend story goes, something was wrong with it. And so it was.
There's a reason why there's a pallet.
So that ended up, the case had a good outcome for the seller. I mean, not the one they wanted, which was they couldn't sell the product, obviously, but they didn't get sued. So that was, for us, it was a good outcome. But that, if they would have, the funny thing is that it was already a Seller Basics member. That had posted it on a online forum that I saw, and they had said, can I throw this letter away, without even asking me? And I read it and I was like, hey, we need to talk like today. And so we set up a call and talked about it. And everyone else, there's like 100 comments on this page telling him, hey, he should just throw it in the trash or use it as burning material, and it doesn't mean anything. And so if you would have followed that, would have been really bad, because if you're told by somebody that you're selling counterfeits and you keep selling counterfeits, you're knowingly selling counterfeits at that point. That's a problem. So
So have you ever run into a situation, not to cut you off because I know you have
yeah,
a next topic, but have you ever run into a situation where like I, as a seller, I went and bought something at a store. And
yeah.
so I'm clearly buying it from like a Walmart or a Target physically in the store, and you get the letter that says it's a counterfeit. Have you ever run into those scenarios?
So typically, if that happens, it's a brand sending the letter. It's not. It usually comes from the legal department, this mythical legal department that's staffed by no attorneys at all, and it says it's and that's and it's really just somebody in marketing or it's an intern or something sending out this letter because that's typically what we see. Because as any U.S. licensed attorney would tell you, like myself included, we're bound by these ethical rules. So we can't just send out letters saying you're selling counterfeits. Now, some attorneys will skirt the rules and they'll try to say that you're selling materially different products and therefore it's not genuine. For instance, there's an attorney out of Amsterdam who's been telling sellers that. But the reality is that he's not licensed in the United States and he has a misguided interpretation of U.S. Intellectual property law. And now we've actually, with that brand, we've been dealing with the brand, and we basically are like, this guy is filing complaints with Amazon, saying this, which is not true under the law. And now we're actually working to get those reversed for sellers who were wrongfully, quote unquote, imprisoned by Amazon, and had their accounts shut down or products suspended because of somebody who's saying something that's simply not true. So,
Okay. So for those people that did buy it like at a Walmart and they get
yeah.
that letter from this fictitious department that is really the brand, what might be one or two things that they might do when they reach out to you?
Well, so I always say that those letters are actually the most dangerous because if you get a letter from a law firm, we're educated, trained professionals. I don't know of many lawyers that are going to put their license on the line for a brand. So they're not going to do it. They're not going to go to Amazon and say, this person's selling counterfeits if they're not selling counterfeits. Now, like the Amsterdam attorney that I said, he's not licensed here. So he doesn't have anything to lose by saying that. And that's the unfortunate reality when he might as well not be an attorney because in the eyes of the law, he's not. Yeah. So but most, if you get a letter from a brand and they're telling you something's going on, or you get a letter and it's this fictitious legal department, I say those are the most scary because those people have nothing to lose by going to Amazon and saying, hey, this person's selling counterfeits when we all know that they're not counterfeit products. So if you get one of those letters from the brand saying, stop selling our product or we're going to file a counterfeit, I typically tell sellers, close the listing or delete the listing, and then talk to me to figure out whether it's okay to reopen the listing. And so we run through a checklist to figure that out because the last thing you want is to have them file a complaint against you and now you're playing defensive instead of offensive.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know some sellers, they're like, I have my receipts and I send my receipts into Amazon because I bought it at, Target. I bought it at Five Below. I bought it at wherever I bought it. And so, and I know for some people, they have been able to resolve some of their issues on their own, but sometimes they just, you're not able to.
Right. And sometimes even it's not even a matter of if you can resolve it on your own. Sometimes Amazon suspends you in that interim period between when you decide to start resolving it and when, like maybe like you're planning tomorrow that you're going to submit the appeal. And then tonight at 5:30, you get a call from Amazon with a 72-hour notice. And so that's the risk that you run when these, rogue, legal departments file claims on Amazon because you may not beat the buzzer. You may run out of time before it's too late. And that's what, and that's why I tell sellers, if they're threatening, and especially if it's signed the legal department, it's different if it's signed in attorney's name. If it's signed in attorney's name, then you definitely still need to talk to an attorney, but you're probably protected a little bit more against the false complaints than the fictitious legal department. Like I have a funny story. There's a group of former cops in Florida that run one of these groups that sends out letters on behalf of the legal department. And they claim, and they actually used to work for Voorhees, and they realized they could make more money doing what Voorhees does on their own. What they didn't realize is that when Voorhees practices law, they're practicing law with a license. And these cops don't have any attorneys on staff, and they're practicing law without a license by sending out letters telling people they're violating the law. And I always find it funny because when we get sellers that get these letters, I'm like, they're telling you that you could go to jail for selling these products. And yet the only person who's 100% violating the law in this case is these retired cops, because it's illegal to practice law without a license in the state of Florida. It is a criminal offense to hold yourself out as an attorney when you're not. And they're absolutely doing that. So
that's sort of hilarious, but also sad.
It is. Exactly. So.
Because here's the deal. The reality is smaller sellers, people that are just getting started in this game, maybe they started off with retail arbitrage with the plans to move to wholesale or private label. They're getting their feet wet. They're trying to get familiar and comfortable with the platform. So they're starting off doing some retail arbitrage, and they get this letter and they just stop dead in their tracks. Right. And like, okay, I'm out. Like, I tapped out. Right. And sometimes they don't need to tap out. They gave up too early, too soon, whatever.
Yeah, they don't realize there's other products they can sell, and especially it can be scary because sometimes sellers they'll get one of these letters and they'll turn to like their family friend whose father is an attorney that maybe deals with property law, and he gets this letter and reads it and is like, well, looks like a well-written letter. You better stop doing what you're doing because you're and then they get told even more like bad information, and they decide to stop selling, and then they're walking away from a potential, life-changing opportunity of selling online. So
selling online is a life-changing opportunity for those people who are consistent and take it seriously. Okay. So what other retail arbitrage, and online arbitrage challenges have you come across recently? I know there's been quite a few with COVID, so I'll be quiet and let you go through the list.
So the biggest thing we're seeing right now of challenges, I'd say, but it's also opportunity, is making sure that you're listing your products against the correct product detail page. Now, this can be Walmart, this could be Amazon, any marketplace that you're selling on, eBay as well. You want to make sure you're listing against the correct product detail page. And this sounds really simple, but it's actually surprisingly difficult. So like, for instance, one thing we're seeing a lot of now is bundles. And so sellers are making their own private label bundles. So they'll, grab a picnic basket, and then they'll fill it full of non-perishable foods and snacks and stuff, and then they'll sell it as like Jeff's picnic basket thing, bundle. And then another seller will see this and they'll go, oh, I can find all those non-perishable foods and I can find that same basket at Target, so I'm going to just make it and sell it on their listing. That's not allowed under the Amazon rules. And then they get hit with an IP complaint for selling counterfeit products. And unfortunately, in the eyes of the law, what they are doing is selling counterfeit products. They just don't understand it when they're doing it. And so that's a big source of confusion. So making sure when you're listing that you're listing against the proper brand is essential. So if you see, and some of it's not that obvious. Like there might not be a picnic basket. It might just be we saw over Easter a bunch of Easter candy thrown into a Ziploc bag, and I think it was like Peeps. And so it was like a bag full of assorted Peeps, and maybe it was like a 20 pack or whatever. And the person had made it their own private label bundle of, assorted variety bundle pack of Peeps with blank, brand name, whatever, insert your own private label brand name here. And so sellers were getting IP complaints for listing Peeps in a Ziploc bag, which they're functionally selling the same thing. But because this seller had created a private label listing with it, with their own brand, they weren't. So in the eyes of Amazon, it was counterfeit. And every one of the cases we worked on with those sellers, as soon as we showed them the product detail page and said, look at this, look at what the brand is. And they're like, not Peeps. They understood exactly what was wrong.
Absolutely.
So taking seconds is.
And so I just did a bundles course, and I was telling people, like, if you're going to do brand registry so you can get the GTI and exemption. So brand registry is worth it if you have a long game. Okay. If you got a long game and you plan on putting generic products in your bundles, then yes, go for the brand registry, go for the GTIN exemption, but do the brand registry so that there's all these other benefits that are associated with it. It is very frustrating as a seller where you put a name brand something, because Peep is name brand. Yeah. So you put a name brand something into a bundle listing that is clearly like, if the whole thing is Peeps, then the brand is really should be Peeps. It shouldn't be your George's, I don't know, yeah. George's food pantry is the name of the brand. It shouldn't be that. It really should be Peeps. And that is very frustrating when people do that. But I think other people do that because they're not approved to be able to sell Peeps. So they have brand registry and they're not approved to sell Peeps. So they do that to try and skirt things.
That is one reason. And then also because they don't want to compete for the buy box. Yeah. Now, one thing I would say is if you're teaching that course and if people are, thinking that that's a great way to make money, do your your fellow sellers a favor. And if you're going to do it, enroll in transparency, because I'm sure you've heard of this before, but transparency is that 2D barcode that you buy. They're like 5 cents a label from Amazon. And what happens is that you've got, let's call it Jeff's Peeps bundle is the brand. Never would be able to get a trademark for that, by the way, but that's a whole other story to talk about later. But let's just say I somehow magically got this trademark for Jeff's Peeps bundle. I as a favor to my fellow sellers and also to avoid headache myself, I'd enroll in transparency and get those transparency stickers, because that's going to stop someone else who just has Peeps from listing on my listing. So I'm not going to have to deal with them coming onto my listing. And I'm also not going to have to deal with reporting them to Amazon, so that everyone wins. I get to sell my bundle, and other sellers don't get hit with IP claims. Win-win. So,
Okay. All right. There you go. That's a golden nugget. I hope y'all wrote that down. Because that is, I know sellers are doing that. I'm like, oh, come on, people. So, right. So what other things are you seeing right now that people, that they're running into, whether they're doing retail or online arbitrage?
So beyond the bundles, we're seeing a lot of sellers begin to create these white label. And I know we said we talked about white label later, but we're seeing a lot of sellers create white label listings where they'll go to like some distributor and they'll buy a bunch of unbranded tools. Like, for instance, I love Harbor Freight for this, because Harbor Freight has a giant catalog full of tools that are cheap and usually have no brand name on them. And so you can make your own branded tools. The problem that's happening is sometimes the people that make lists don't look at the brand names. So they're finding the Harbor Freight tool for like $2, and they're finding the Amazon listing, again, a private label listing of like Jeff's Tools for $35. And they're like, look at this incredible ROI. And then, people go on and they list. And like, for instance, there's one in particular that I know of that we've had a lot of sellers get hit with lately. I won't say the exact brand, but the guy will send an email and he'll be like, please stop listing on my product. This is my private label. And all the sellers that we've had get IP claims either write back something nonsensical, like, I'm protected by the first sale doctrine for this. And then he's like, oh yeah, counterfeit. And then they get hit with an IP claim. Or they, don't take him seriously and they don't write anything back and they just keep selling. And then he files a counterfeit. So it's like, if you get a notice from a seller saying, I'm going to file an IP complaint against you, or a brand saying, I'm going to file an IP complaint against you, like, absolutely stop what you're doing and figure out if you're in the right or the wrong. Because simply, like, our sellers that have gotten these IP complaints, if they would have just looked at the listing and seen, oh, I bought this as a Harbor Freight brand. I'm selling a Harbor Freight brand, but it's not Harbor Freight on Amazon. They would have avoided an entire IP complaint. And the problem with Amazon is that their teams are not trained. And this is a common misconception among Amazon sellers and brands alike. They think that Amazon is somehow adjudicating these decisions and making value judgments. And they're simply not, because Amazon has what's called a safe harbor. And what that means is that if someone tells Amazon, quote unquote, they give notice that someone's infringing on their IP, Amazon must take action. That action is to remove the listing or remove the seller from the listing. Then the seller has an opportunity to respond. If the seller provides evidence that they were not infringing, AKA like a receipt. So we've got a Target mug on a Target mug listing with a receipt from Target, Amazon can check all those boxes and be like, okay, there's no infringement because Target, good, you can sell. However, when you start getting into the value judgments area is I've got a Harbor Freight unbranded tool with a branded private label listing, and I'm trying to convince Amazon that this tool, it may even have the exact same photo from harborfreight.com, but I'm trying to convince them that it's the same when my receipt is for an unbranded product and this brand is something different. And they're just simply not equipped. They're not equipped to make those judgments. And what they tell sellers is we can't accept your appeal because you didn't provide us with the invoice. And what they're really saying is we can't accept this because we're not trained to do this. Like you're asking us to make a decision that we're simply not trained. Like they're not intellectual property experts. In fact, most of the people that are adjudicating, checking these, shouldn't say adjudicating, but who are reviewing these appeals are maybe never even went through. They don't even know what a copyright or a trademark is because they're simply just doing a job where they're just like checking boxes.
Yep.
Safely check the box that A plus B equals C. And if that answer is not, if 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2, they're simply just going to say decline because they don't want to lose their job.
Right.
Lose their job.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that most of them are, hourly employees. They're not thinking about any of that stuff. So, my takeaway for those people is that, when you want to piggyback off of a listing, whether it's a bundle or a non-bundle, make sure that everything about what you're about to try and piggyback on is the same as yours.
Yes.
Look at the brand name, even though it's like, oh, okay. Like we said earlier, it's Peeps. We all have Peeps. We all know where to go get Peeps. We can get them all day. But the brand name for this listing is not the same. So therefore, you create a situation. So make sure you're finding the listing where the Peeps exist. And if you don't find the listing, then create a new listing. If you're approved to be able to sell Peeps, don't create it under a brand name and think you're going to be okay if you're not approved to sell Peeps. And that's all discussion.
And that's the other thing. Another thing where sellers have been getting in trouble lately is I've been seeing a rise of these listings where they'll find a product and it's for sale, at like Marshall's. And so let's say it's a pair of Under Armour pants and they're not, for whatever reason, they're gated in Under Armour or the listing simply doesn't exist. So they can't find a listing. So they think, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to make my own Under Armour listing. But because I'm not authorized by Under Armour to create a listing under the brand of Under Armour, I'm going to spell it under -ARMOR, and maybe I'll add kids to the end of it because it's a kid's pants. So that way it's further. And then they get hit with an IP claim because what's happened even more lately is that we're seeing people getting hit with listing violations for circumventing brand restrictions.
Oh yeah.
That's if Amazon's not letting you do something,
don't do it.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. You're probably not the first person that found a way to get around the system. And so while it may work for a day or two, it's not going to work long term.
Nope. Stop using the black hat trips, guys.
Exactly.
Stop using them because you're going to be frustrated in the end. You're going to be frustrated with what happens with your listing and everything else. So what are a couple of Q4 tips for those people that are doing retail arbitrage or online arbitrage? We'll come back to private label and white label.
Yeah, absolutely. So Q4 tips. 1, check it, like you mentioned earlier, check every attribute of the product detail page when you're listing. 2, another big one people often don't think about. The price you see today might not be the price you see tomorrow. So when you're buying a product, look at your graphs to see what the historical price trends have been. If you find a bunch of product on sale in your local Walmart, it may be for sale just at your local Walmart on clearance, or it may be for sale at other Walmarts. So that's where your friend network comes in. Ask other people that are sellers. If you're in Dallas and you see that this product is normally $40 and it's for sale for $5 at Walmart, there's 2 questions I'm going to ask here. 1, is somebody in Chicago also seeing the same price? Because if they're seeing the same price, then you know that that price on Amazon is about to tank. And two, if it's not the same price, if you're not seeing that, why? And you can even ask your Walmart, ask the manager, why is this on sale? Is it just not moving? Is there something wrong with it? Is it, they should be able to justify why something's on sale if it's a dramatic discount from what you're used to seeing. So
yeah, that's true.
Ask those questions and figure it out, is important.
It is important. I know that Walmart does have secret clearance sometimes, and yes, it will be store specific. So
Yes.
That's where that comes into play. And sometimes if you find a store specific secret clearance item, you're lucky, because if it's not nationwide, then you just made a huge, profit if you're
Right.
able to sell it. But if it is nationwide, he's right, the price is going to tank. So do you invest? Do you not invest? That's a call for you. I probably, depending on what the history is for this thing and how popular it is and whether or not it's going to come back around, I might go ahead and grab it anyway, and then wait until all of the bottom droppers fall out, and then list my item at the regular price again. So having tools like Keepa can help you figure some of that out.
Absolutely. And then along the same line, we've been seeing a huge rise in marketplace fair pricing policy violations.
Oh, yeah.
So far, we have not seen anybody suspended for it, knock on wood, since March of 2020. So we're on, a 14 month, 14 months have gone by since the last time we saw it. So, or am I 16 months? Sorry, 16 months since the last time that's happened. So it's so far so good. But what I tell sellers is, if you get one of those, what we've been seeing as a strategy is there's kind of two ways to go about it. One, you can lower your price until the point when it comes active again, and then slowly raise it back up. Or two, you can just sit and wait. So as long as, and this is where cash flow management really becomes important. If you're, some sellers will live on the float. And so they're living from credit card statement to credit card statement. And so they've got to clear out that inventory right away. And if that's what the seller's doing, then that's fine. But this probably wouldn't be applicable because they'll lose a lot of money. So don't follow this instruction. But if you are one of the sellers that's paying cash, or at least, can pay off the credit card and can wait on the inventory, you can actually wait for the price to recover. So maybe today, $20 is an unacceptable price on Amazon. But in 3 weeks, $20 might be acceptable, and you'll no longer have a fair pricing violation. And so you'll sell it for $20 instead of trying to sell it today for $10, which is what Amazon says is acceptable. So definitely.
That's a good one. That's a good one. A strategy I learned a long time ago was especially during Q4, especially if you're creating new listings, is there's two, price boxes that are on Amazon. One of them is like either the sale. I can't remember without looking at the screen, but there's two of them. One of them is like the sale, and then the regular or whatever. And so you could put your item, put the price, the high price, and the regular, and then start to bring it down on sale, and then remove the sale when later on, and your price will be whatever the price is. So
yeah. I think now it's done through the coupon manager is how you can do that. That's how they want you to do it now. So that's also another thing you can do is, come in with a limited time coupon and be like, hey, $5 off for this.
Yes. And then that way, if you were planning on selling something for a higher price, so you don't get hit with the high price violations, your high price is still sitting out there at whatever it is, $89.99, and you come in, you swoop in at like, I don't know, $59.99 with your sale price or your coupon discount, whatever. And then that way, when you remove the coupon, your high price is still there. So
right, absolutely.
I learned that a long time ago. Okay, so what other Q4
tips? Strategies? So Canada and Mexico continue to be a source of a lot of profit for sellers. Mm-hmm. Things to watch out for, though, when you're selling in Canada, especially, it's the one that's most prevalent with this issue, is to make sure you manage your exclusion list. So, for instance, a lot of people don't realize that English and French are the official languages of Canada. So products that are sold in the United States often do not contain French. So this doesn't necessarily matter for like clothes. Although if you ever look at a Nike tag, you'll see that it's in English and French and German, but so that kind of covers it. But but where it really matters is things like Tylenol. So anything that's considered an over-the-counter pharmaceutical in Canada has to be approved by Health Canada. And if you don't have that little Canadian flag that says Government du Canada, which is Government of Canada in French, and it be in English and French, then it's technically unlawful to sell in Canada. So where sellers get in trouble with their Canadian accounts is they just tell it, hey, anything I sell in the United States, sell in Canada. And so for our sellers that make money off of like supplements and over-the-counter drugs, or you find maybe you're at Walmart and you find Tylenol on sale for, like $1 a bottle, and normally it's $20 a bottle. Make sure it's on your exclusion list, because we have, believe it or not, the most common Canadian suspension we deal with. And it happens like once a month, is somebody who gets suspended for being a drug dealer in Canada because they sold Tylenol. And so we've got some.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that one.
Yeah, we got some big time drug dealers we're representing these days.
That's a good one. So yeah, I guess I had not. I mean, I thought about that, but I didn't really think about it to that degree. Good to know. That's a good one.
So some sellers just say, don't worry about Canada. Like they just don't even sell there at all. I'm kind of on the fence. My whole thing is if you don't have the resources and time to dedicate to making sure you're doing it lawfully, then don't sell in Canada. But if you can do that, and you can just tell yourself mentally that I'm listing in the United States and I need to make sure it's okay to sell elsewhere before I list it there too, then make money. There's money to be made. So that's Absolutely. The key word there.
There is money to be made, definitely. Then we have the next thing is, let's see. So sorry, my son decided he wanted to interrupt. Anything else on retail arbitrage, online arbitrage that you've been seeing that you find that, something else you want to share? Just if there's one more tidbit.
Documentation. I know I say it every single time you and I talk, but it's the number one thing people have trouble with. Especially like we've got a lot of, I guess, what do we call them? Maybe like boomers that are coming into the online arbitrage world. And they, like one of our clients didn't know how to print. And so they were taking photos of their order confirmations with their phone from their computer, and because they didn't know how to print an email. And I mean, that's like, like kind of an extreme case, but when Amazon asks you for documentation, they're not really wanting to see a picture of a picture of, like they want you to actually print it out. So, if you're getting into the online arbitrage world, and you're maybe not the most tech savvy person, learn how to print and print out your order confirmations right when you do them. Yes, it's a lot of paper, but when you need it, you've got it. So that's it.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good to know. Yes. I always do save as PDF so that way I can go print it later.
Yeah.
Saves me a lot of hassle, and I can print all at once. So I just send all the PDFs to print. But yeah, when I do send a print, I do send a PDF and then name the file. So
smart. Yeah, that works too. It's just, the biggest thing is people forget to do it, and they'll place, because, you'll place like 5 or 10 orders in a day, and you won't even think about it, or more. Some people are placing like 20 or 30 orders in a day, and you just don't even think about it. You're like, oh, well, they'll send me an email. But there's a lot of companies that their system just doesn't send emails sometimes, or the emails they send are not nearly as detailed as the website that you just purchased from. So definitely saving as PDF is crucial.
Yes, save as a PDF. That way you'll have that record of stuff should you need it.
Right.
Also take pictures of your receipts and upload them. I use TaxBot, and then I also do take a picture and email it to my email account, so that way I have it in 2 places, just Smart. In case I need to have it at some point.
Do you use a receipt scanner at all? Or
I have a neat, I'm looking over here at the corner.
Yeah.
I have a neat receipt scanner. It has the little attachment at the top to scan the receipts. I don't always do that because I normally try to take a picture of my receipts immediately, just in case something goes wrong, because I have an autistic son and anything is liable to go wrong. So we could be walking to the car and the receipt blows out the bag because I'm chasing him down some other direction.
Gotcha.
I take a picture, I write on the receipt immediately, and then I take the picture of it immediately, and it goes into TaxBot, and I then immediately email it to my email account, so I have it in 2 places. And then if it makes its way home, then I might scan it as well.
Okay. That's the other big one now. Amazon, when you've got these, like, I'm sure you've been to Nike and you've gotten like the 20-foot long receipt. So Amazon when you're supplying them receipts, they want to see the whole receipt.
Yeah.
They also want you to circle what's at issue. So that's where that neat receipt really comes in handy, because the neat receipt will automatically make it printable. So yeah.
So if you don't have a neat, you should get a neat. But yes, I do have a neat. I don't always use it, but I do make sure I try to get the entire receipt. If it's a long receipt, then, it's a bunch of pieces. It's like, 4 pictures or whatever. So I try to get all of it. But I do write at the top the data transaction and stuff and what it's for.
Smart.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we've covered a lot of what I'm seeing right now in online arbitrage and retail arbitrage. So see.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else is there.
Well, we're going to talk about private label real quick. If there's anything that private label sellers need to be mindful of.
Yeah, so private label sellers. All right, so this is where it gets fun. So remember how I said earlier that Amazon associates don't necessarily know what a copyright, what a trademark, what a patent are? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? A lot of sellers don't either. So this part of the presentation is about education. So first, we're going to talk about copyrights. These are the most simple form of intellectual property protection. A copyright can cover a picture, it can cover text, it can cover videos. So pretty much anything somebody creates is copywritten. And what's really important about that is it means that if you're creating a private label product, you've got to make sure that everything you use in your listing is your own. So like if I've got if I'm going to go and create a product detail page and say I'm making a reusable water bottle, and I'm looking at one of Yeti's listings because I found some manufacturer that will make me a knockoff Yeti mug, but print Jeff on it instead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at I can use theirs as inspiration, but do not paraphrase and do not copy and paste. Now, I say don't paraphrase. In all reality, you could legally paraphrase if you wanted to. The problem is that a lot of sellers don't remember how to plagiarize or paraphrase, because we haven't done it since high school or college, and so we plagiarize. And plagiarism has in the academic world, it's called plagiarism. In the commercial world, it's called copyright infringement. In the academic world, you get expelled or you get suspended. In the commercial world, it carries a $30,000 penalty. So, so when that's why I tell sellers, I'm like, if you can do it, and like I had a seller yesterday I was talking to, and he was like, my daughter's an English major. Okay, she probably is pretty good. She can probably paraphrase. Let her do it. Outsource to her. But if you don't know how to paraphrase, Amazon's not the place to learn. Because you'll lose your listing, and you could end up getting legally in trouble as well from a civil liability perspective. Nobody's going to copyright jail, so that's the good news. If somebody tells you you're going to copyright jail, well, ask them what movie they're taking it from. But so copyrights are important. They're also one of the easiest ways for sellers to build value when it comes to exiting. So if you when you go to exit your brand, like most private label sellers are thinking long-term. They're not just going in it just to make, a couple bucks today. They're actually going because they want to, build a brand and sell it for their family. Right. So copyrights are crucial. So going, you come up, say we hire a copywriter? Yeah, a copywriter to write your product detail page. I would then, first off, make sure that your agreement with them says that you own the copyright. And assuming that it does, then go file a copyright, because now you've got this amazing text that it was professionally written that you can copyright protect. And copyrights from the US government, you can do it yourself or you can hire an attorney to do it. If you do it yourself, it's about like $75, depending on what you're doing. And you can protect an entire product detail page for $75 on the text portion.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know, guys. Okay.
Yeah. And remember what I told you about plagiarism or paraphrasing? Well, when somebody goes and paraphrases your listing, if you've got that copyright, you just simply go to Amazon and you say, I had a copyright. They usually start with VA. So VA and then the number. And then you say, this person stole my text on this product detail page, and they'll take it down. So, they'll that's part of that. Remember how I said the whole giving them notice and they take it down, they'll take it down. So that's a way to boost.
I love that. So one of the things I teach people is I tell them to definitely look at your competition and get inspiration and learn some of the keywords from their listing, and also any other blog posts and any other advertisements that you see. Grab inspiration from all of them to write your copy. And you can there's plagiarism software that you can run your listing through, so you can confirm that you didn't plagiarize somebody. So that's always helpful. But right. Taking inspiration. I take inspiration, but I don't steal other people's copy. I don't do that.
Smart. Exactly. So that's copyrights. Oh, copyrights can also cover your photos. So every time you take a picture, that's protected by copyright. If you make you hire somebody to say I've got a picture of my water bottle and I want to have somebody do a lifestyle image and show it, on the side of a pool. There's two things that are going on with that usage. One, you better make sure you license the photo that they're putting it into. So if you're having you've got a picture of the water bottle by the pool and you're using somebody else's picture of the pool plus your picture of the water bottle, then you need to license that pool photo, or you need to make sure you've gotten it from a source that's royalty free.
Yep.
Do not leave that up to your person that you hired. Unfortunately, a lot of graphic artists are overseas and not necessarily in jurisdictions with strong intellectual property protections. So they're not trained to think about this. They just say, oh, you said go find a picture of a pool. They went to Google, they typed in pool, and they just copied and pasted it. And maybe they took it from some award-winning hotel or some award-winning photographer. And then all of a sudden you're the one holding the bag because you put it on your listing. So I always say, if you're dealing with somebody that's a graphic artist, one, you'll make your life a lot easier if you give them the photos. Like if you say, here's a picture of my water bottle and here's a picture of the pool, make them look good, and you give them both of them, then you're going to get exactly what you want. So you're going to save on the back and forth of no, this is not good enough, or so you save
time. Royalty free. This is whatever. Yeah.
You also make sure that the royalties are done correctly and that they're in your name and not your photographer's name, because that's the other big thing we're seeing an issue with now is photographers are starting to enforce their rights on Amazon. And what they do is they're like, well, I licensed it to Jeff with Jeff's mug company, but I didn't license, or actually, sorry, take it back. They licensed it to this VA or this graphic artist, and their graphic artist company limited, and then Jeff's mug company is using it, and they're like, we don't have any record of Jeff's mug company being authorized to use this, and then they file a copyright claim against Jeff's mug company on Amazon. So if you license it, you use your brand name. So don't put it under Jeff's. If online your Nicole's mug company online, make it say Nicole's mug company when you're licensing it, and give the photos to your graphic artist, because that'll save you a lot of headache later. So
absolutely, I agree with that 1,000%. There's a lot of photos that are out there that Getty's, which I found out a long time ago the hard way, that Getty's is owned by the Koch brothers. I think
so. Yeah,
Getty's Images. I was like, what? Yeah, I learned a long time ago, several years ago. So yeah. Make sure they're royalty free.
Yes, make sure they're royalty free, and even if they're royalty free, there's usually a registration form to download it. So make sure you register your brand, so that way they know who's using it. So that's the pro tip there. Mm-hmm. So now you mentioned inspiration. You said look at what keywords someone's using. So let's jump into trademarks, because keywords and trademarks go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do.
So a trademark is the legal definition of a trademark is anything that's used to identify the source of a good. So when I look at a bottle of Coke, there's a couple things trademarked there. Coke is trademarked as a name. Coca-Cola is trademarked as a name. The cursive is trademarked as a logo, like an image. And then interestingly enough, the Coke bottle shape itself is trademarked by Coca-Cola as representing, because if you take off all the labels from a bottle of Coca-Cola and you set it on a counter,
you still know it's
average human knows that that's Coca-Cola.
Yep.
So that bottle has become so famous that it's got a trademark too. So so what's at play here is you've got, so trademarks, the legal definition is it's anything that's able to identify the source of a good. So when you look at that bottle of Coke, if you don't see the logo or the name or the shape, all of those designate the source of origin. That's what a trademark is from a legal context.
Yeah.
Now, why are trademarks important to sellers? Well, if you want brand registry, you've got to have a trademark. So, so getting a trademark early in your brand journey is important because you want to make sure that you're not building. We've had this happen a couple months ago where a seller built up a 7-figure business without a trademark. He got really fortunate. And then somebody came in and said, hey, you're infringing on our trademark because we've had this mark for 7 years now. And we made, 6 figures on Amazon, but you're doing way better than us. And you're infringing by using our mark. And so he had to change all of his brands on Amazon. His entire company name had to change, all of his labels, all of his logos, everything had to change because he was infringing. So.
Oh, wow. That's tough.
Yes. So get it. So learning about your trademark early is for yourself is important. Now let's talk about trademarks from a defensive strategy. Trademarks can also take you down. So some of the big ones that we have seen lately, Velcro is on the prowl. So if you're this is regardless of if you're a retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, or private label, if you are selling something that has a hook and loop closure, that is a hook and loop closure unless there's something showing that it's actually Velcro. So like a lot of sellers have been having this issue because they'll find like Nike kids shoes and they'll say has Velcro on the shoes. The problem is Nike doesn't license Velcro from 3M. So when a seller creates a listing and says Nike kids shoes with Velcro closings, they're infringing on Velcro's mark unintentionally because they don't think about it. You don't even think twice. So what it should say is, Nike kids shoes with hook and loop closure. That's the legal definition of what that type of closing mechanism is. And if you're creating a private label product, there's 2 ways around it. One, you can purchase actual Velcro from 3M and license the name. Then you're free to say Velcro. Like if you've got some great design and you think that people are going to value it more because it has Velcro in the title, then it's probably worth it to think about licensing Velcro from 3M and buying it wholesale from them and using it.
Yeah.
That's totally acceptable. But if you don't want to go that route, then it's, Jeff's, mug company with, like say that my mug has a pouch that's on the side that's like a Velcro patch or whatever. It's going to be a hook and loop closure patch on the side if I don't go license it. So just make sure.
I would never know what the Sam Hill a hook and loop closer is because we're so used to saying Velcro.
Right.
I would be all confused about what, like somebody show me what a hook and loop, because I understand the little Velcro pieces have the little loop thing and then it has but I would have never have thought anyway. That's very interesting.
So same thing with zippers, believe it or not. Zipper is a trademark of YKK. So if you're selling something like say it's children's clothes and it's got a zip closure, you can call it a zip closure. You can call it there's a locking closure, but you cannot call it zip lock or zipper because those are trademarks of YKK. So
wow, interesting. I just learned something new. That is very interesting. Okay, all right. So trademark regarding like keywords. So those are sort of semi keywords, but other keywords there. So I know that there's like, I'll use an example. I sell like we're going to be selling, teaching people how to sell Christmas bundles. Yeah. So Christmas, not trademark. Like you can't trademark Christmas. Right. You can't trademark Santa Claus. Like you can't. Some of these things are not trademarked. So when we think about some of the keywords that are associated with that, then I'm like, okay, those are good. But I just learned zipper and Velcro. Good to know. I would have never thought that.
And like think about like the other things where sometimes sellers have a little bit of run-ins with trademark owners.
Mhm.
It's like they'll have a private label product and they'll put a keyword like great holiday ornament, Hallmark style.
Oh, Hallmark is trademarked.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Hallmark
we've
is
seen
trademarked. Yeah.
things like that. So you
Now
just
that I know, those things
right.
I know. Like I can't name a brand name. There's another big, well-known holiday brand in addition to Hallmark. But yes, and so I'm
Yeah.
like, you can't use that
Right.
because that's their trademark.
And that was the other thing too. We had a seller have an issue. A couple sellers lately have issues where their private label products and their competitor might be called, XYZ, and they decided in their back end search terms keywords to put XYZ. And believe it or not, that's trademark infringement because even though it's not visible on the product detail page, like you
It's in
can't
the
see
search.
it, it's in the back end keywords. And if somebody pulls that ASIN report from Amazon, they will find their trademark in your back end keywords. That's infringement. So that's, but a lot of people get confused because believe it or not, there's like a weird exception. You can use search media. So like you can have it if you like where you can use somebody's trademark when they're like you can bid on those search keywords. So like if I'm on Google or I'm on Amazon PPC and I'm selling, a Hallmark kit or I'm selling an ornament and I decide to bid on Hallmark ornaments as a search term, I can legally do that as long as the results shown don't say check out my Hallmark ornament competitor or something like that. Like you can't use them in the results, but you can bid on people searching for it.
Okay.
But
Yes.
there's just that. But before you do it, like that's pretty sophisticated. I would say you want to talk to an attorney first, just to make sure you're on the right side of the law there, because you can very quickly go into the wrong side, and it's wrong
Because
side.
Hallmark has a lot of money and they have big paid, well-paid attorneys, and you do not. You do not.
Yes.
So, okay, so we talked about some no-nos. We got into some no-nos for sure. So I want to ask, like, so some of us have been seeing some weirdness with Amazon. And let me just preface this by saying the majority of what we've been talking about has definitely been on Amazon. We'll talk just for a second here in a minute about other platforms, but some other tips, because some of this stuff still applies to other platforms too. But some of the weirdness that we've been seeing, like Barbie is flagged as porn, a coloring book is flagged as hazmat, an empty paper coloring book is flagged as hazmat. So what is happening here when we have these crazy, ridiculous, what is happening with that?
So there's two theories. One is that it's bots gone wild. That's the most plausible theory, and that's the robots on Amazon are pretty well trained, but every once in a while they, if you change the algorithm slightly, you add a new line of code. When you're dealing with millions of products in a catalog, it can sometimes have an unintended effect. And unfortunately for sellers, typically a lot of sellers, I was guilty of this too. Like I'll sell in my niche. So I sold a lot of pet shampoo and a lot of pet products. So if there had been something that the algorithm was changed that targeted pets, I would think that all of Amazon is coming down on everybody because I'm being affected because I've got a lot of listings suspended. So that of course happens with sellers where it's like you might be a retail arbitrage and your specialty is clothes, and they change something that has to do with the pesticide algorithm, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of closed listings suspended, and so you're assuming that Amazon's just kicking everybody off for pesticides. So I think that's what happens, is that people they think that because it's happening to them in this area, it must be happening to everyone everywhere. In all reality, they probably just changed one line of code that affected clothing or pet shampoos. And it was very devastating for this particular seller and maybe their group or community, but not necessarily every cat item in the catalog. So that's most plausible.
So bots gone wild is AI bots, guys, just in case the artificial intelligence bots. But yeah, go ahead. And then the next
plausible theory is that one of the things that some sellers do as a black hat tactic to try to get their competitors down is they will go in and they will download listing reports, flat files, and they will find spaces that are not filled in. And they will then fill in those spaces with prohibited keywords. So like we see this a lot in certain categories that are extremely competitive for private label. Like, like they'll all of a sudden you'll be like, why was my listing suspended for selling drugs or drug paraphernalia? And then you pull this flat file and you're like, it says that it contains cocaine. Like what? As a keyword, like what happened here? That's usually.
Oh my God, these people are evil. They are so evil. That is so mean.
So yes, that does happen. So that's also a possibility. Like the Barbie thing could have been a competitor that just typed in a whole bunch of naughty keywords in a blank flat file and uploaded it to a bunch of Barbie listings. That's also possible. More likely than not, though, it's just bots gone wild. Misplaced line of code that just had to get corrected. So those would be the two likely scenarios. It's not, in all reality, Amazon certainly would not be paying somebody, because they're all about making money. So they're not going to pay somebody to go and flag Barbie products as adult material to make your life difficult.
Correct.
It's not worth their time or money. There's better ways to spend it. So
absolutely. Okay, good to know. It's actually pretty funny and sad. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, so we've dealt with some of those cases. So we've dealt with some of those cases where someone will be like, my listing was, suspended for drug paraphernalia, and we start looking at it and it's like contains LSD, contains cocaine, like it's added into it, and we're like, did you do this? No. Well, okay, now we're gonna take it from here, make the argument that you didn't do this, and get it back.
Man. Okay, so other platforms. What are some of the things that people need to know about the other platforms?
So the other platforms, pretty much a lot of people say like, oh, Walmart is the Wild West. Walmart is the Wild West, sort of, except for the fact that they are rapidly growing. They're implementing a lot of the same policies that Amazon has. So pretty much if you think it's not okay to do on Amazon, it's probably not okay to do on Walmart. And so that's just, like a pro tip there, like you should be platform agnostic. Like if you're going to do XYZ activity on Amazon, you should do the same activity on Walmart, the same on Etsy, the same on eBay, because pretty much their terms of service and their rules are very much harmonized. It's not, you're not going to find like for instance, no one's going to go to no one's going to go to Etsy, and Etsy's not going to be like, oh yeah, come here, and Amazon won't let you sell this item because it's infringing on Amazon. Come sell it on our platform. No, if it's infringing on Amazon, it's infringing on Etsy too. I actually had that discussion with a seller a little while ago, where a product they're selling on Amazon was infringing, and we did the analysis, and it was infringing. She's like, well, I'm just going to sell it on eBay. No, that's not the solution here. Like it's you should treat them the same, and you'll avoid a lot of headache. Amazon may be the most strict, but the rules are pretty similar across the board. So
right. And I think, I sort of follow that rule, with the exception of like, you can sell more things, more categories on Walmart right now. At some point, Walmart will start to lock down categories. Who knows when that'll be, 3 years from now, whatever. But while you're able to sell it, but don't do anything that you shouldn't be doing in the first place, for sure.
And Walmart, believe it or not, they do suspend sellers. So we've had more and more Walmart suspensions. Like for instance, if Walmart comes to you and says, hey, we need you to prove that you're selling authentic product. It's not a suggestion. It's, it may be written nicer than Amazon, but it's definitely not a suggested activity. It's not like a, recommended reading list. It's like more of like a required summer reading list.
Absolutely.
So if they ask you for invoices, you say how many, like not, how many and when, not like I'll, like sometimes people are like, well, just, Walmart's just, it's only 5% of my sales. So I'm going to treat it like it's 5% of my sales. Believe it or not, we have some sellers that we work with now that Walmart is 100% of their sales.
Yeah. Walmart is
off Walmart than they do on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's just the products are selling.
It's growing like crazy. So like I said, the only exception to the rule is I know that there are some products that you can not sell on Amazon because you might be brand gated or category gated. And so you probably have the flexibility to sell it on Walmart right now. So go sell it on Walmart right now. But everything else about it, like don't sell counterfeits, don't do all the other crazy stuff. Make sure you're above board when running your business, especially if it's a business that you plan on, scaling long term. Don't blow a grenade. Don't throw a grenade into your business. It's not worth it.
Especially because, I mean, like we've seen more and more innovations. So like Walmart is testing out fulfillment by Walmart.
Yes.
When that finally launches, that's going to be game changer. Like it will be an equivalent to FBA. And
well, it's they're still fine tuning. It's already live, WFS, and it's already live. And it's not the same as Amazon FBA, but it is, it is a fulfillment opportunity. So yeah, WFS is live. So.
Yeah, and that'll be game changer.
Yeah.
The other big thing for Walmart, the same rules apply when it comes to like retail arbitrage. Retail arbitrage shouldn't be done from a thrift store. I get a lot of flack for this, and people don't like that I say it. But the reality is that there's no proof between when it got to the thrift store and was on the shelf. You have no supply chain authenticity for before that point. So while you can prove that you purchased it from Goodwill for $35, you can't prove that Goodwill had it donated from an authentic source, and that's the problem with using thrift stores like that. So it's not acceptable for Amazon or Walmart. Maybe eBay. Probably get away with it for a while on eBay because they just have a little bit less controls. But
yeah, they do. They do have a little bit less controls.
But and then Etsy. Etsy is a cool platform. We're seeing more and more sellers, not necessarily having issues with it, but just, it's becoming more and more of a platform for sellers to make money on. So if you make handmade goods or you have goods that are, could be sort of print on demand-ish or whatever, Etsy is a great place to make money. The big thing for Etsy, though, is, again, intellectual property is important. So, knowing your source. So if you're selling a print on demand of something and maybe you had a VA come up with the design, knowing how they came up with the design is crucial. We had a case recently that we worked on. The VA came up with this really cool product. The seller made about $50,000 in profit from it. It was a huge hit. And then they got a cease and desist letter from a law firm in the UK that represents a famous author that basically was like, you have a really cool product, except the problem is that when you look at it, it seems a lot like the story written by our billionaire author. And so much so that we don't think that you could have come up with this product unless you had read her books and stolen her idea.
Wow.
We looked at it and we're like, yeah, seems plausible. And so luckily the settlement was that he just had to pay out all the profit he'd made, $50,000. They could have gone for a lot more. So just
know the source of what your VAs are doing. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. I recently had to have my VA, we got some work back from one of our VAs in Pakistan, and I had to have a VA in the US review it. And I said, please make sure that this isn't copywritten, like it's not written somewhere else. And she ran it through the plagiarism. She said, yep, it's 100% plagiarized. I'm like, ah. Right. And so we had to completely rewrite it. I had to completely rewrite it, redo it, everything. And I was like, this is so annoying. But anyway, yeah.
Right. And that's just like, I don't think the VAs are doing it intentionally. They want, they're not taught that in their, and not that we're necessarily taught that in our education system either, but they're even less so. And so it's just, and the sharing economy abroad is different than in the United States. So,
yeah. Yeah. So I've had to explain that a couple of times to my VAs, like, okay, none of this can be the same because I don't want to get into a copyright situation with somebody. You cannot, as it has to be different. It cannot look like theirs. It cannot It cannot all of this stuff. And I'm like, you have to make sure that the words are different. Everything is different. The layout, the format. They were like, okay. So
exactly. So,
well, this has been helpful. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we close out? I hope this was a blessing to everybody watching.
I think
So,
that's about it. Those are kind of the big things for people to watch out for, or in things to, opportunities to make money on these e-commerce platforms, you know. So,
well, where can people find you? Because I know you at Seller Basics. So let me just say this. So Jeff is offering, for those people who grab the All Access Pass, you get the opportunity to get $50 off of a Seller Basics membership. So I would take that, because if you're a seller and you're scaling, your business is growing, and you run into some challenges, it's nothing like being able to get a real attorney on the phone, an attorney who actually sells or knows what sellers are doing. Versus someone who is not a seller. So I would take up that opportunity all day long. But can you tell them a little bit about Seller Basics?
Yeah, Seller Basics. So it really was our program that we designed as a solution for sellers getting hit with massive legal bills. So when I was in law school, like I said, I got the Voorhees letter. With it came, the multi-$1,000 retainer, and with a law firm to try to figure out if there was any merit to what they were saying. And, it became a several $1,000 experience by the time it was all done. That was also combined with a product suspension and an account suspension, all happening around the same time. So that lawyer made a lot of money off of me.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yes. So Seller Basics was the answer. It was basically our solution. We came up, we're like, we should come up with a program where sellers could pay monthly, gives them unlimited ability to talk to licensed attorneys whenever they want. So all of our attorneys on the network, we've got 3 so far, but we're going to keep trying to grow it, are licensed in the United States. We may not all be here, but we're all licensed in the United States. So we've got Florida, New York, and New Jersey covered right now. Along with that $99 a monthly fee, the big benefit is you get huge discounts on all the services we offer. So like for IP claims, we charge a flat rate of $149 for members compared to $1,500 for non-members. So that's 90% off. And our big one is account suspension. So if you sign up today and your account gets suspended tomorrow, you won't pay for us to write a professional appeal for you with Amazon. And that's however many appeals we have to write. If we have to take it to the legal department or the executive departments, everything's included. You don't pay anything unless we just have to go to arbitration, which so far has not happened. So knock on wood. If we had to go to arbitration, that would not be included, but everything else is. So
oh my gosh.
We actually had, so far this week, we had 2 sellers get 72-hour notices. They were in Seller Basics. We wrote their appeals, had them reinstated in under 24 hours, and they did not pay a dime. So that was, so it really does work. And even a couple of weeks ago, we had a seller sign up on June 14th. She got suspended on June 16th, and she didn't pay anything for us to write the appeal. So it really does work as advertised.
Oh my goodness. So there's a link somewhere on this page for you all to sign up for Seller Basics if you're interested in signing up. And if you want to upgrade to the All Access Pass, you can get the $50 off. There'll be a link somewhere on this page. So you can do that as well. I would encourage you to do so, especially if you're scaling your business. If you're still like in the early stages of trying to figure out if this e-commerce thing is for you or not for you, you may want to wait until you're into profit and then, grab the Seller Basics if you're ready to run with this e-commerce journey. But if you're just messing around, I always tell people wait until you're into profit before you spend any money on outside things. So make sure you have a good trainer that's telling you the right stuff, and watch this video again.
Right.
So, anyway, so you know what not to do.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you so much. I'm so glad that you're part of the summit. I thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
We just got over an hour's time of an attorney absolutely free. So I'm just going to say thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely.
Attorneys are not cheap. And
we're going to say it's affordable. So
there you go. So this has been another session for the eCom sellers, or eCom Q4 Summit, the eCom Q4 Summit sessions. And we are so glad that you're here. We're going to say goodbye for now.
Goodbye.